But me, your man, Louie T, welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I got a little quick two-part series for you guys to digest before Thursday's live stream. So I'm going to get these videos out to you as soon as possible so that you can watch them, consume them, kind of formulate an opinion, and we can discuss on Thursday Night Live. But one of the positions of need as we really start to, forge ahead towards the offseason, one of the positions of need for this team for the last 4 or 5 years, easy, has been linebacker. They tried to address it via the draft in the first round with Jamin Davis, and he started to come of age last year, showed us that he was worthy of being selected high in the draft. Maybe they still overdrafted him at 17, but whatever the case, or wherever it was, 20, 21, or wherever he was selected, 19, somewhere in that neighborhood, whatever the case may be, he showed the ability to play last year and that we didn't waste a pick. So now the question becomes, do you want to address linebacker via the draft or free agency or both? I think one won't do this year, especially if you don't bring back Cole Holcomb. So I wanted to put this video out first so that we can take a look at the linebackers that will be available via free agency. And then I want to show you something really interesting, and that'll be in part 2 of this series, this quick little series that we'll have. And then you can kind of formulate your own opinion as to what you would prefer to do. But I'm going to give you a little outline and template of what Sports SB Nation has put together, which is Hog Haven. But we'll talk about that a little bit later down the road. I just want to talk about the linebacker position in particular. So right now, you got Jamin Davis, really. Khaleke Hudson showed his ass in the final game of the season. I think I was a Khaleke Hudson fan. I felt like there were roles that they could have carved out for him on this defense. For whatever reason, they haven't. But he got an opportunity in Week 18, got a game ball. Wrecked shop against Dallas, and I think he's going to get an opportunity in some way, shape, or form to play, or at least be on the roster next year, which is, I think it's asinine that he wasn't on the roster this past year, but whatever the case may be, I'm sick of the old retreads. I'm sick of the guys that Rivera is comfortable with. I'm sick of the David Mayos and the John Bostics of the world. I'm ready to move on from those guys, get younger at that position, more athletic, and have more depth, more presence at the line. We just aren't good at the second level. We're not good enough at the second level. And so I got a couple of interesting takes on the linebacker position, but first, let's look at the crop. This is a really impressive crop of linebackers that will be available this offseason. So let's take a look at this group now. This is according to PFF, and I don't subscribe to this, okay? But these are some good names here, okay? Looking at this list, this is a really good list that they've compiled. It's missing one guy. I'd take Leighton Vander Esch off this list. He had a really good season for Dallas, but I'm not interested in him. He's had too many issues with his neck. I'd remove him from this list altogether, and I would insert Azeez Al-Shire from the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, PFF, they grade these linebackers out. That's why these guys are on the list. I don't care about PFF grades. You guys know that. So I would remove Leighton Vander Esch and insert Azeez Al-Shire from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he's dealt with some injuries, and he's, more of a reserve on that defense, but he's a damn good one. So look at this list of guys, and this is an impressive list. Lavonte David, for me, a little bit too long in the tooth. He's still a really good football player, very instinctual, but he's north of 30. He's a Buccaneer through and through. I think he should finish his career there if they want him, but I'm not interested because of the age. David Long is the guy that I circle here. Now, I love me some Tremaine Edmonds. Those are the two guys in particular. Now, Edmonds is going to cost you a lot more than David Long is. If the Titans are smart, they'll bring back David Long. They can't let him leave the building. They let Jayon Brown leave, which they probably did that on purpose. He wasn't what they thought he was going to be. But David Long, they got a surprise in the 5th round out of West Virginia with this kid. He was outstanding this year. I loved him coming out of West Virginia. I thought he had a chance to be really good, and he's proven me right. And if I'm looking at a guy that won't cost you, as much, because Tremaine Edmonds is going to cost you anywhere from 70 to 80, maybe even north of 85 and $90 million, over a 5-year deal. Like, we just saw Roquan Smith hit 100. None of these guys are getting more than Roquan Smith, but Tremaine Edmonds is the guy that's going to be the closest. So if you're willing to spend that kind of money at linebacker, knock yourself out. I am not necessarily looking to do that. I'm more along the lines of saying, hey, how about we give David Long a 3-year, deal, roughly $45 million, $44 million. That would attract a guy here at the linebacker position. I mean, Roquan signed a 5-year, $100 million. That's $20 million a year, right? So if you're David Long, you'll take a 15 per year type deal, right? It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. Maybe you stretch that out, make it a 4-year deal, $60 million 4 years or whatever, $62 million over 4 years, whatever the case may be. David Long, Edmonds is going to cost you, if it's a 4-year deal, you're probably looking at every bit of, I don't know, 4 years would probably cost you roughly $72 million maybe. It'll be somewhere in that probably $16 to $18 million per year range. I would guess. I'm not 100% sure about that. But if you go 5, you're probably looking 80, 85, 90 for Tremaine Edmonds. Whereas Long isn't going to cost you as much. But TJ Edwards, really good for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. I'm good on him, but he was really good. If they decided to go that route, I wouldn't be upset. Jermaine Pratt was a guy I loved coming out of NC State. Physical, downhill guy, but he's shown more athleticism than I probably gave him credit for coming out of NC State. He's been really good, not only as a downhill thumper, but he's also been pretty solid in pass coverage as well. Bobby Okereke has been outstanding in coverage, and that was his niche coming out of Stanford. He's lived up to it in the league. Also a really solid tackler, a guy that has a nose for the football. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on him. And then I would replace Leighton Vander Esch with Azeez Al-Shire. I mean, you're talking about 7 guys that I wouldn't mind having on my team. All of these guys, except for Leighton Vander Esch, and I would replace him with Azeez Al-Shire from San Francisco. Take out Levante David. I'm not interested, a little bit older than I'm looking for at the linebacker position. You got 6 guys here that I would be interested in. And it's just all really depending upon how much are you willing to spend? What are you looking for? Are you looking for inside? Are you looking for outside? I think also keep this in mind. If we continue to play the kind of defense that we've been playing, okay, then you don't need 87 linebackers. In a traditional 4-3 defensive front, you could sign one of these guys, bring back Cole Holcomb, draft another guy, bring back Khaleke Hudson, and you'd be fine, right? Add in another guy via the draft late round, and you'd be sitting pretty, right? But because we play this Buffalo nickel, if you don't trust one of these linebackers, and to me, you can't pay one of these dudes unless you trust them to be that Buffalo nickel type of guy, or at least you feel comfortable enough staying in your base, taking off the field one of these nickel defenders and keeping one of these linebackers on the field because they can run in coverage. You saw and I get it, Fred Warner's are rare specimens, right? But you saw him running down. We talked about this. You saw him running down the seam, covering CeeDee Lamb 35, 40 yards down the field, turns his head to locate football and dislodges it from CeeDee Lamb. Like, you want a guy that can do that. Get you a guy that can do both at the linebacker position. Not just play the run, but can also play the pass. These guys, for the most part, can do that. David Long had the crazy pick against us on the goal line when Carson Wentz threw the slant and he dove and picked it off. Like, that's a hell of a play. Like, get you a guy that can do both. These guys can do both. So, if you're going to play the defense, you're going to continue to play the style of defense that we play, which usually only has 2 linebackers on the field at any given moment, then if you've already got Jamin Davis, you sign one of these guys, then you don't really need to do anything else monster at the position. You do need one more quality backup, however. And so, is that Cole Holcomb? Is Cole Holcomb willing to take a backup reduced role on this team? I don't know. Is that Khaleke Hudson, and then you add in a late, round linebacker and you go about it that way? I don't know. But if you're going to sign a free agent linebacker, just keep this in mind. If you're going to sign a free agent linebacker, then you don't need to then go out and draft a high-level linebacker. You don't need to do both. Either you're going to look for a high-level linebacker in the first 2 days of the draft, day 1 or day 2, and then roll with Jamin Davis and that young linebacker, and then maybe bring in and have Khalil Hudson, and maybe bring in a late round draft pick, fifth, sixth round at the linebacker position. See if you can't hit like the Lions did with Malcolm Rodriguez as a 7th round pick. See if you can't do something like that. Or you're going to get one of these guys, and then you bring back Khalil Hudson, and you go after it that way. Okay? But to me, you don't need to draft a guy here or sign a guy here, draft someone in day one or two, and because now you've got too much resources tied up into a position where you don't plan on playing all of these guys. Again, only 2 of these guys are going to be on the field at any given moment with the defense that we play. We've essentially played a 4-2-5 this season for all intents and purposes. 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. That Buffalo nickel serves as your last linebacker. If you're not going to go back to a pure 4-3 defense, which I think they're trying to get away from because they want more speed on the field, then I don't even know if it's necessary to invest in one of these dudes, to be honest with you. But we know we need more help at linebacker. And if you want to go about it the veteran route, and all of these guys are young with the exception of Lavonte David. All of these guys are young going into their second contract. So it would be of great interest if they were willing to spend on a linebacker to take a look at one of these guys, add Azeez Al-Shire in there from San Francisco, take Lavonte David out if you ask me. Again, north of 30, I'm good, I'm a pass. But you got these 26-year-olds, 27-year-old guys here that you're staring at going into the prime of their career that you could have them for the next 3-4 years. You got to be interested if you're Washington. With what we've gotten out of the linebacker position, which is not enough, I don't even know if you should feel comfortable going about it via the draft. Honestly speaking, I don't know if I want to go the draft route and have to sit for a year or two of a guy trying to figure shit out. I think I just want a guy that's going to come in here and instantly upgrade the front 7. I think that's what I'm looking for at this point. What says you? What would you prefer? Draft? 2nd, 3rd, 4th round guy in the draft. Maybe bring back Cole Holcomb on a lower level deal, because as you can see, Cole Holcomb's not in that category. You're not going to spend that kind of money. You bring back Cole Holcomb, and you're probably going to spend, let's say Cole Holcomb, you bring him back because Ron and company aren't going to be here, but maybe one more year. 2 years, maybe. Let's say you bring back Cole Holcomb's like, hey, I got injured. I'm going to bet on myself. I'll sign a 1-year, $7.5 million deal to come back to Washington next year. All right. If that's the case, then you go Cole Holcomb, Jamin Davis. You draft a young guy, let's say in the 3rd round, 4th round. All right. And you bring back, Khalil Hudson. And that's the group of 4 right there that you're bringing back, and you feel comfortable with that. That's also a possibility. Or you could spend on one of those dudes, right? Bring in Jamin Davis, put those 2 together, right? Maybe you still bring back Cole Holcomb if he's willing to come back and compete on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. Maybe he's not willing. If you go out and sign a linebacker, the likelihood is Cole Holcomb is gone. Okay. I don't think they're going to spend, just so you know, I don't think they're going to spend on one of these guys. I think they're going to bring back Cole Holcomb. Much cheaper option. They really like what he was doing before he got injured. I think they're going to stick with Cole personally, but we'll see what happens. There are options out there. That's all I'm trying to get you to think about is there are options that are available that weren't available the past couple of years that we were looking. We were trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and get excited about guys that weren't all that good with their last teams. Every single one of those guys I just showed you were really good for their last team, and they're young for the most part with the exception of Lavonte David. They're all young. These are guys going into the prime of their careers, just scratching the surface that you're going to get at 26, 27, maybe 25 years old, depending on how long they spent in college. You're going to get a young guy going into the prime of his career that you should be excited about. You're going to have to spend more so on, the high end is going to be a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, but a guy lower on that rung, right? David Long, very intriguing. Jermaine Pratt will be somewhere in between there, and all those other guys, Bobby Okereke, those guys will be somewhere in that mix. High end is going to be Tremaine Edmonds. I think the floor with that group may be like a Bobby Okereke, right? Yeah, and so in between there, I think you're going to find the rest of those players. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't. This free agency class is really impressive, and it's at every position that we could potentially need. I don't think spending on a corner, which is why I didn't bring it up to you guys. I don't think that's smart. I don't think we've already done that with William Jackson III. I don't think that's a smart investment, being that you already have juice. out there on a rookie contract. I think you can draft another guy on a rookie contract. You got Kendall Fuller still playing some quality ball, and Danny Johnson showed us a little something. I'd like to run that back and see what that's all about, if that's legit or not. So I'd prefer to just stick with the younger guys. You've got enough veterans that have been in the league. Now that Juice is going into his third season, you got Kendall Fuller, Danny Johnson. You got guys that are veterans now. You add in another young guy, I think, in the mix. And I'd feel damn good about that secondary, at the cornerback position in particular, starting to round into shape. I still think you need a nickel. Now, if you want to talk about nickels, I'm intrigued. We can talk about that at a later date and time if they want to go the veteran nickel route. I'll look over that list just to see if anything's out there, because I've given you guys that have been gems that we just didn't get, i.e. Mike Hilton at the nickel. We see what he's doing for Cincinnati. I think he's been one of the big guys that have helped transform that defense from, a middling defense to one of the better units in football that played in the Super Bowl last year and has a chance to play in it again. He's a huge part of that. Of course, Trey Hendrickson and some of the other guys that they brought in free agency. But Hilton's one of those guys. If we can find somebody like that, I'd definitely be interested. I'll take a look and see if someone's out there like that. But anyway, what says you about the linebacker position? Are you intrigued by any of those guys? Would you be willing to go high end there? Would you rather, go a little bit lower end? Would you want to stick with Cole Holcomb? Do you want to go via the draft and bypass all of these guys? What says you? Leave it down in the comment section. This is part one. I bring this up because my guy John Perez had an interesting article that he sent to me. I looked at it and I thought it was a great conversation starter for us. So this is part one. Watch this first, and then you'll take a look at part two of the series. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys in the near future. Make sure you watch this and part two, because we're going to discuss these things on Thursday night and really see how you guys feel about this. But of course, you know what it is. Post up, take command. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.